Hello class, this is lesson 1-4, word problems. To solve word problems found on the GED math test, we are going to be using the 5-step problem solving process, which is a guide on how to approach these problems and solve them. This is the Learning Needed channel. I use the Kaplan GED Test Prep book for reference in these videos. I specifically use the 2024 to 2025 years. However, I have found that most years, the recent years, keep the same material and are generally the same format. So you don't have to get the 2024-2025 year to follow along with this video, and you don't need the book either to follow along with what is taught in the video. That is just what I'm using for reference. Also, a reminder that for the GED math test, the only approved calculator is the Texas Instruments 30XS. I have a link to purchase both the book and the calculator if interested in the video description below. Now, as always, I have a request to my students. First, please remember your reason why you're passing the GED test. Whatever the reason is, you're embarking on a great journey that is going to help you out in the long run. So please just keep that reason close to your heart as you continue striving to get your GED certificate. Second, don't give up. This is not meant to be easy, and hopefully these videos will help you get to that passing grade on the GED math test. And finally, please like and subscribe so that I can keep creating GED content for you, not just in math, but in all subjects as well. Finally, I do have a one-on-one tutoring session offering available, and a link to that website is in the video description below. When you encounter word problems in the GED math test, they differ in that, well, you have to read what is presented to you, and we'll see that in example problems here shortly. But by following the 5-step problem solving process, you have a guide on how to approach these problems such that you get the right answer. So the 5 steps are, what is the question asking me to find? So you're going to read the paragraph, the short paragraph, and it's going to give you different information, and it's going to give you the information that you need to solve the problem. But the main thing is the answer. And so you have to ask, what is the answer that they're looking for? And a good way to solidify that in your mind is to repeat the question in your own words. Second, what information from the problem do I need? And further, what information can I ignore? Filter out the necessary information only. You'll find that in a lot of these problems, they're going to give you some extra information. Not always, but very often. So what it is trying to do is capture your understanding of the problem and how to solve the problem. And it's going to verify this by giving you extra information and see if you can filter that out and only use the information that you need. Third step is, what operation do I need to perform? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So what do I need to do? What operation do I need to perform to get the final answer? Number 4 is, what is my solution? So that is actually getting the answer, using the operation you chose in step 3 and the information from step 2 to solve the answer. This is actually using math to solve the answer. So solve the problems with the numbers chosen in step 2. And finally, it is a check on your answer. Does my answer make sense? So it's good to get the answer, and it's easy to, when you see that your answer matches one of the multiple choices, say that's it. But take a short step, a short amount of time to evaluate your answer and say, hey, based on what I read and what it is asking me to do, does my answer make sense? As I mentioned, the GED math test will purposely put in extra information to try and throw you off. So by carefully evaluating step 2, you will be able to filter out the necessary information. So let us do some example problems to see what this 5-step problem solving process looks like in action. Example problem number 1. For a family get-together, Peter wants to be sure that each child gets 2 party favors. The party favors cost $3 each, and there are 11 children coming. How many party favors will Peter need? So let's go through the 5-step problem solving process. Question number 1 to ask yourself is, what is the question asking me to find? So the question or the answer that the problem is looking for is usually found in the last sentence of the paragraph. And it asks, how many party favors will Peter need? So I'm going to rephrase that in my own words and say, how many party favors, presents, how many total party favors do I need such that each child gets two, right? So that is number one. So how many party favors for all 11 children? Now in this case, my question is about the same length as the original question, but that's okay. This to me is how I would answer if someone asked me, what is that problem asking you? And that I would say, well, how many party favors for all 11 children? Number two, what information from the problem do I need? And what can I ignore? So I'm going to highlight the different information that I see. And in my mind, the information that is most relevant in math tend to be the numbers. So I'm gonna highlight the numbers. So it says that each child gets two party favors. So I'm gonna highlight that or underline it. The party favors cost $3 each, and there are 11 children coming. So the information that I found are two party favors each. So let me highlight that. Each child gets two party favors. So two party favors each. The party favors cost $3, and there are 11 children coming. How many party favors? So with these three pieces of information, I have to ask what is necessary and what is not. And from the question that I rewrote, or the original question, is ask how many party favors and how many party favors. The information that I don't see relevant to this problem is the information relating to money. Nowhere am I getting any indication that it's asking how much money will any of this cost, how much money he has spent, how much money he will spend. I get no reference to money or the cost of anything in this problem. So that is the information I am going to ignore. And with that, the information that I am left with is two party favors. I keep spelling favors wrong, I don't know why. Party favors each, and 11 children. So I have successfully filtered out the information I do not know. Number three, what operation do I need to perform of the four choices? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? Well, if each child gets two party favors and there are 11 children coming, then I know that I am going to need quite a number of party favors. So the value from these two pieces of information that I need when I perform an operation should increase, or the answer should be greater than both of these numbers. So the operation for two party favors each for 11 total children, to me, the operation that I will need to get the final answer will be multiplication, right? So now that I have chosen my operation, number four is solving the problem. So what is my solution? Well, I'm going to perform the multiplication operation on the two pieces of information that I have kept. So I am going to multiply two party favors by 11 children. This is an operation that indicates that 11 children will get two party favors each. And the answer here is 22. So to the answer of how many party favors for all 11 children, or the original question, how many party favors will Peter need? The answer is 22 party favors. Third time's the charm. I spelled favors correctly. And number five is where I take a small step back and say, does 22 party favors make sense? So there will be quite a number of party favors. There should be more party favors than there are children coming if each child is getting more than one. If each child was only getting one party favor, then there would only be 11 party favors, right? Each child gets one. But every child gets two. So it would be twice the amount of party favors than if each child got one, which is 22. Now that was my way of justifying it, or not justifying it, of just checking to see if the answer makes sense. But essentially it's just makes sense within the context of the problem, and that your answer isn't something that if you presented it in real life, it'd be, well, I don't quite see how that's making sense or how that works. So doing that quick sanity check, just using logic, is a good extra step that is good to increase your chances of getting the right answer. So the answer here is 22 party favors. Now let's do another example problem. Example problem number 2. A family uses an average of 225 gallons of water per day, 5 gallons of which goes through the family's water filter. The water filter can process 450 gallons before it needs to be replaced. After how many days of average water use will the family need to replace their filter? That was quite a lot of information, right? So let's go through the 5-step problem solving process. Number 1, what is the question asking me to find? So once again, I look to the last answer, the last sentence in the problem. So after how many days, and usually I focus on how many, that word choice for the answer that I'm trying to find. How many and then something. That's a very good indicator of what it wants the answer to be. How many days is what it's asking me to find. Days. But days of what? Of average water use will the family need to replace their filter. So the answer is going to be something days. All right? But what days? What do the days represent? It is the average water use. When will the filter need to be replaced? So the question rewritten in my mind is after how many days will the filter need to be replaced? Now I'm writing this out, that's why it's a little slow, but when you're taking the test, you can just have that in your mind. I'm just writing it out so that we're all on the same page. So the question is, after how many days will the filter need to be replaced? And the answer should be an amount and then days. So now that I've rewritten the question in a way that makes more sense to me, number 2 is, what information from the problem do I need and what can I ignore? So once again, I'm going to highlight the information that is presented to me in this problem. And again, it tends to be the information surrounding or really close to the numbers. So a family uses an average of 225 gallons of water per day. And then 5 of those gallons goes through the family's water filter. And the water filter can process 450 gallons before it needs to be replaced. So the information that it provided me is 225 gallons of water per day are used. 5 gallons of those 225 gallons go through the family's water filter, and the water filter can process 450 gallons before it needs to be replaced, right? So all of this information seems really close to each other, right? So maybe I need to use all of it. So let's slow down and talk about it. So the question is, after how many days will the filter need to be replaced? Well, when does the filter need to be replaced? Let me cut that question up a little bit. When does the filter need to be replaced? And the information presented to me there is that it has to be replaced after it is filtered 450 gallons. So that is relevant information. 450 gallons has to be information that I maintain in this problem, right? Because that tells me the cap. It tells me the maximum amount before it replaces. So whatever information I'm calculating for, the max has to be 450 gallons, right? That is what I am looking to find to tell me that's when you need to replace it. Now the other 2 pieces of information left are, well, the family uses 225 gallons of water per day, and 5 gallons of that goes through the water's family filter. So 225 gallons of water per day, okay, that's just how much water they use in a day. It's not related necessarily to the filter. It's just that's how much water they use in a day, okay? But more specifically, 5 gallons of that water goes through the family's water filter in a day. So how do I, even though it doesn't say 5 gallons goes through the family's water filter per day, I know that because it told me the total amount of water that they use, 225 gallons of water per day, and then it tells me 5 of those gallons goes through goes to the family's water filter. So the information that I need here is the information related to the filter. And the information related to the filter is the 5 gallons per day. So the 225 gallons isn't relevant to this problem because not all 225 gallons of that water are going through the filter. Only 5 of those gallons are going through the filter, right? So 225 gallons is the extra information in this problem. So now I have 2 pieces of information left of the 3 that are provided. So now I am now ready for step 3. Step 3 is, what operation do I need to perform? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division? Well, I have that 450 gallons is how much a filter can process before it needs to be replaced. And I know that I filter, or the family filters 5 of those gallons per day. So how much time before I reach the 450 gallons? And I know that I do 5 gallons per day. So to me, the best operation to use for this is division. I do not need to add these 2 numbers together. I don't need to subtract them, and I don't need to multiply them. I need to divide them. Because if I know how much gallons I need before it needs to be replaced and gallons I use per day, division will give me the answer in terms of days that I am looking for. Now that I have chosen the operation, number 4 is what is my solution, and that is actually solving the problem. So to solve this problem, I say that 450 gallons is how much it can process before needing replacement. And the way that I'm going to get how many days I can use it at 5 gallons per day is by dividing 450 gallons by 5 gallons a day. So if I divide 450 by 5, then the answer here is 90. Now this section isn't about division. You can check this answer with the calculator, right? This is a lesson about going through the 5-step process. And so I'm just going to go ahead and tell you that 450 divided by 5 is 90. So 90 days is how much time I can use the filter before it needs to be replaced. And finally, number 5 is, let me take a step back really quickly and say, does 90 days make sense? Well, if I went ahead with using all the information, it might not, because I think, well, 90 days of using 225 gallons, that's a lot of water, right? But that's not what the question is asking about. The question is asking about the filter specifically. So if you filter 5 gallons of water per day, it's not a lot. And if I can process 450 gallons total, 5 gallons per day seems like it would take quite a number of days before I reach 450. So 3 months sounds to me like a good amount of time if I'm only filtering 5 gallons of water per day. If somehow the question said you're filtering all 225 gallons of water per day, then 90 days doesn't make sense, right? If you need to replace it every 450 gallons, right? You would need to replace it every 2 days. So 90 days makes sense if I'm filtering only 5 gallons of water per day. So yeah, it makes sense. So this is example problem number 2 of how to use the 5-step process. So let us now go to the next section. There is now something called the multi-step problems. So multi-step problems use the same 5-step problem solving process with one added note, and that is, in the previous 2 example problems that you saw, you only had to do one math operation, right? We did multiplication and division, each for its own problem. But there are some times where you will need to actually do a couple of math operations, and that is when you get to step number 3, when you're choosing your operations, you'll see that you'll need to do more than one operation. And so let's see an example of that. In this problem, it goes, notebook paper at a store only comes in packages of 400 sheets. If a binder can fit 150 sheets and a customer buys enough paper to fill 3 binders, how many sheets will be left over? So let us go into the 5-step process and see how it differs from those operations where you only need one. So again, number 1, what is the question asking me to find? The question is asking me to find how many sheets will be left over. So sheets left over. Okay? And I'm actually going to keep it as simple as that. What does the question mean? What is the question asking me to find? Sheets left over. So the answer is going to be something or a number of sheets. I apologize for my terrible handwriting. That's not something I have fixed since I was a kid. But hopefully it makes sense. So I'm just going to leave it like that. Sheets left over. That's the answer. That's what I'm looking for. So number 2 is what information from the problem do I need, and further, what can I ignore? So once again, like the previous problems, it gave me 3 pieces of information. That a store only comes in packages of 400 sheets. So in this scenario, the store cannot, and you know, think about real life scenarios. If you buy a 3-pack of, I don't know, celery sticks, for example. I'm not, can't think of an example right now, but if you buy a 3-pack of anything, celery sticks, it's very rare for a store to say, oh, you only need 2 of them? Well, then I'm just going to open this package and give you the 2 you need and sell it to you at 2/3 the price. No, if you buy the 3-pack, you're buying the whole thing, and it's not the responsibility of the store whether you use all of it or not, right? So the store only sells paper in packages of 400 sheets. So if you buy 1 packet, you get 400 sheets only. Can't get any less, can't get any more. The other piece of information that I see is that a binder fits 150 sheets. Okay, so I'm going to put binder 150 sheets. And the third piece of information is a customer buys enough paper to fill 3 binders. I'm also going to write the first piece of information I wrote. 400 sheet package. And finally, a customer buys enough paper to fill 3 binders. Okay, so customer 3 binders. So here are the 3 pieces of information. The 400 sheets tells me that is how many I get in a package. A binder fits 150 sheets, and the customer buys enough to fill 3 binders. So the binder information and the customer information seem very closely related to each other. Okay? So all of this information actually seems relevant to me. I need to know how many sheets come in a paper, how many sheets come in a package. I need to know how many sheets fit in a binder, and I need to know how many binders we are talking about here. So actually, in this case, all 3 pieces of information are necessary. And like I said, not always will the GED test give you extra information. Sometimes you'll need all of it. And what it's testing you is for you to recognize it. Can you decipher what information is needed and what information is extra, if any? So I'm going to say that I need all of this information. So now that I've decided the information, I'm going to go to number 3. Number 3 says, what operation do I need to perform? And here is where the multi-step problem differs. Because before you only needed to do 1 operation, but now you actually need to do more than 1, right? So what operation or operations do I need to use? Well, let's look at the problem. A binder fits 150 sheets and a customer buys 3 binders. So that tells me, so I need to work with those 2 pieces of information so that I get how many sheets fit into 3 binders. How do I find how many sheets go into 3 binders if I know how many sheets go into 1? And the answer to that is I'm going to multiply. I am going to multiply, M for multiply, binder info times customer info. So the binder info is 150 sheets and the customer info is that they bought 3 binders. Okay? But even if I do that, the only information that tells me is that how many sheets fit into 3 binders. I still need to know how many sheets I have to start with, or how many sheets I get when I buy enough paper to fill in 3 binders. And the way that I do that is that, well, once I know how much paper fits into 3 binders, I need to compare that number by how many sheets I can get if I buy them in packages, right? So in that case, when it's asking me how many sheets are left over, it means that I need to subtract how many sheets I have by how many sheets I was able to put into the binder. So in this case, I am going to use subtraction and multiplication as the operations that I need. So number 4 is, what is my solution? So the first thing I'm going to do is how many sheets and 3 binders. And that is 150 times 3 binders, and that gives me 450 sheets. That's one operation. Now, the customer bought enough packages of paper to fill 450 sheets. Now, since packages only come in 400 sheets, then that means that the customer bought more than one. And you go to the next number. How many did he buy? Well, in that case, they had to have bought 2 packages of 400 sheets, right? So 400 sheets times 2 packages is equal to 800 sheets. And then finally, since they bought 2 packages of 400 sheets, they have 800 sheets total. But 450 of those sheets went into the binders. So that means that I have to subtract those 2 values from each other so that I know how many sheets are left over. So 800 sheets from the 2 packages minus 450 sheets that were put into the binders gives me 350 sheets left over. So 350 sheets is the answer. And now I'm just going to quickly take a step back and say, does my answer make sense? Well, you can only buy sheets and packages of 400, so 800 is quite a lot of sheets. But 450 of them, that is more than half, go into the binders. So being left over with a good number of sheets, but definitely a number less than 800 makes sense. So the answer makes sense in this case. The answer is 350 sheets. Now the multi-step problem was different because it wasn't just, oh, I multiply the information that I need, or I only subtract the information that I have. No, you have to do a couple of steps. It starts getting more in line with the other math problems that you see where you have several numbers and you do multiple operations to get the answer, right? It's just that this is the word problem version of it. So now that we've solved this one, let's look at one more example. Example multi-step problem number 2. A health insurance plan costs $3,000 per year for a family of 6. If each family member spends $750 in medical expenses in a year, and the plan pays 100% of those expenses, how much money will the family save by purchasing the plan? So, to be completely honest, insurance things kind of scare me a little bit, even just in real life scenarios, right? It seems to be a very complicated process. But ignoring that, let's use the 5-step problem solving process to get through it, right? Get that answer. So, what is the question asking me to find? It's asking me how much, that's a very common thing to ask in math, how much will the family save by purchasing the plan? So my rewording of that is how much money saved with plan. And I think that's a very valid real life question, to be honest, when you're researching health insurance plans And there are so many companies that offer insurance plans. I think this is a very good question to be asking. So it's asking me how much money saved with the plan. Okay, what information from the problem do I need and what can I ignore? So let's go to the numbers in the problem, which is where the information tends to be. A health insurance plan costs $3,000 per year for a family of 6. Okay? If each family member spends $750 in medical expenses in a year and the plan pays 100% of those expenses, how much will the family save? Now I know I underlined a lot, but I'm going to rewrite what I am keeping in under number 2. So a health insurance plan costs $3,000 per year. So $3,000 per year plan. Next, family is 6. 6 members, essentially, right? Each family member spends $750 in medical expenses in a year. So $750 each member. And the plan pays 100% of those expenses. Now, I'm not going to use that information. I don't see how I'm going to use that information to calculate the answer. That is just information presented to confirm that you don't need to divide or you don't need to multiply a percentage or a decimal in between what the health insurance plan pays and what each family member spends. So this is just confirming that they have a health insurance plan and it's going to pay for every medical expense. So essentially, they pay for $3,000 in a year, and no matter how much they spend, the insurance is going to cover it. And that's what you're trying to find. If you know how much they spend, if you know how much your family spends, is it better to get the health insurance plan or not? Because you want the health insurance plan if your medical expenses are greater than $3,000, right? Because you pay $3,000 for sure, but if your medical expenses are more than that, well then yeah, you only pay $3,000 and your medical expenses, let's say, were $6,000. Well, that's great. Instead of paying $6,000, you pay a $3,000 health insurance plan that covers all your medical expenses, and so you save money, right? You do not want a health insurance plan if you spend less than what the health insurance company costs. If you spend $3,000 of health insurance in a year and you only spend $500 of medical expenses, well, the health insurance plan will cover those $500, but you spent $3,000 for that health insurance plan. So you didn't save money, you lost money, right? So the plan saying that it pays 100% of those expenses is just saying that it's going to cover it. It's a match, right? So the information that I'm keeping is that the plan costs $3,000. There are 6 family members, and each family member spends $750. Okay? So what operations do I need to perform? So I see 2 pieces of information that I need to compare, right? I need to compare the $3,000 plan that cost against how much money each family member spends, right? So to calculate how much each family member spends, I multiply how much each member spends by how many family members there are. This is multiplication. And then to get how much money is saved, I compare the cost of the plan versus how much the family as a whole spends in a year. And the way that I'm going to compare those answers is by the way that I'm going to see how much is saved is by subtracting some values. So I'm going to do subtraction and multiplication. So now that I've figured out those operations, let's go to number 4 and solve the problem. So I'm going to label how much the family spends as family spend. And that is that $750 is spent by 6 family members. And $750 by 6 is, I didn't pre-calculate this, so I'm going to multiply it here quickly. So let's do 6, 0, 30, 7, 42, 450. There you go. I was like, I'm missing a 0 somewhere. $4,500. By the way, me doing that math live, made me a little nervous, right? But yes, 750. So 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 5 is 30. I drop the 0 and do the 3. 7 times 6 is 42, then add the 3. Again, this is not a multiplication, division, subtraction, or addition lesson. This is just a lesson on word problems. So now you can check this with the calculator for this lesson. So the family spends $4,500 a year, and the insurance costs $3,000 a year. So they spend more than the insurance costs. So yes, they are saving money, because again, you want a plan if you spend more than what the plan gives you. And in this case, it does. So the way that I figure out how much money is saved is that I multiply how much the family, that I subtract how much the insurance costs from how much they spend each year. And the answer is 4,500 minus 3,000, 4,500 minus 3,000, and that is $1,500. So by buying an insurance plan that costs $3,000 and they spend $4,500 in a year, so long as the insurance plan covers everything that they spend medically, then they save $1,500 a year. So let me take a step back and see does the answer make sense, right? So again, really quickly, just explaining it in words. A family spends $4,500 every year. They know that. And then they find a health insurance plan that says, hey, give us $3,000 only once, and we'll cover all your medical expenses for a year. So the family says, that's actually a great plan, because we spend more than $3,000 in a year, and you're going to cover all of it. So here's $3,000. And the difference between what they would normally spend without the insurance plan to what they spend with it is $1,500. And that makes sense. They save money, and quite a good amount too. So it makes sense. So I hope that these example problems helped explain the 5-step problem solving process. Now, I did spend quite some time talking and explaining my thought process as I tried to explain it in my mind, how it works. But essentially, as with most things, the more you practice it, the more you do it. These 5 steps are a guideline to help you out, right? It's not like other parts of math where you have to follow the steps in order every single time so that you get the right answer. This is a guideline, all right? Maybe you don't need to be rewriting the question every single time. Maybe you don't need to dedicate a whole step to deciding what operation to use. You solve it as you come. This is a guide for your use as you see fit. But with practice of these word problems, the more you practice them, the more you'll notice what you need and what you don't. But if you start here, it would be a very good way to get towards the right answer every time. So I hope this lesson helped. And again, if you have any questions, definitely leave a comment, or you can send an email directly. You can find the email on my website. And I will see you guys in the next lesson. Thank you.